It's my journey, it's your journey. You need my help and I need yours. 'Cause we are...
Hello, family. Welcome to Journeys of Faith Super Saints podcast. I am Brother Joseph, your narrator. Be sure to look at the description for special information of interest to you. Our Lady of Banneux, the Virgin of the Poor and her message of hope. There are moments in Catholic history when heaven bends low to touch the earth, offering a message that echoes in the hearts of believers for generations. The apparitions of Our Lady of Banneux, known lovingly as the Virgin of the Poor, stand among these cherished events, a testament not only to the enduring tenderness of our Blessed Mother, but also to the boundless mercy of her Son, truly present in the most Holy Eucharist. For the faithful, stories like these are more than distant legends. They are living witnesses that resonate with our deepest longings. They draw us into the heart of the Church's devotional life, reminding us of Mary's motherly concern for each of her children, especially those weighed down by poverty, loneliness, or suffering. At Journeys of Faith, these Marian apparitions are woven into our very mission, to walk with you through the wondrous landscapes of Catholic pilgrimage, story, and miracle, bringing you closer to Jesus, Mary, and the saints. Whether recounted in quiet family circles, catechetical classrooms, or on pilgrimage roads, the message of Our Lady of Banneux awakens a new hope. It beckons us to trust in God's providence, to embrace the sacraments, and to open our hearts to the needs of the poor and afflicted. Join us as we revisit this beautiful chapter in Marian devotion, share testimonies of miraculous intercession, and invite you to respond with renewed faith and love, ever guided by Mary, the Virgin of the Poor. The story of Our Lady of Banneux. On a cold January evening in 1933, in the small Belgian village of Banneux, an extraordinary sequence of events began to unfold. Mariette Beco, a simple 11-year-old girl from a humble working-class family, stood by the window of her home when she saw a mysterious, luminous figure in the garden. Enveloped in radiant light and adorned with a white gown and blue sash, the figure beckoned Mariette to come closer. Despite her family's poverty and spiritual indifference, her father being away from the church at the time, Mariette felt an inexorable pull into the cold night. That same evening marked the first of 8 apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the one whom pilgrims and believers would come to know as Our Lady of Banneux, the Virgin of the Poor. Mary identified herself to Mariette as the Virgin of the Poor, a gentle mother coming to comfort not only a struggling child, but a world wounded by poverty, war, and disbelief. Throughout the apparitions, Mary's presence radiated simplicity, warmth, and hope. She led Mariette to a spring at the edge of the garden, promising, "This spring is reserved for all nations. For the sick, I come to relieve suffering." Here, Mary's message was not complicated, but powerful, pointing the faithful to the healing, motherly heart of God, accessible to every soul, especially the forgotten and the poor. As word spread, villagers and onlookers flocked to the site, prayerfully awaiting the Virgin's return. Miraculous healings and profound conversions soon followed, affirming the authenticity of these encounters in hearts touched by grace. Mary urged a message of trust, compassion, and prayer, culminating in her invitation, "I am the Mother of the Savior, Mother of God. Pray much." For many, the events at Banneux rekindled faith and renewed devotion to the sacraments, especially the Eucharist and the Rosary, fostering an enduring legacy that continues to draw pilgrims from around the world. Even today, the quiet chapel and flowing spring at Banneux remain a sanctuary of consolation, a testament to the Virgin's enduring promise to embrace those in need and draw them closer to her Son. The story of Banneux stands as a luminous call to faith, hope, and charity, inviting all to trust in God's providence through Our Lady's loving intercession. The humble village, chosen by heaven. Nestled among the rolling green hills and quiet woods of Belgium, Banneux is the sort of place that might go unnoticed by the world. A rural patchwork of humble cottages, meandering streams, and winding lanes framed by towering pines. It was here, in this peaceful obscurity, that heaven chose to reach down in 1933 with an invitation that would reverberate far beyond its borders. The Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to Mariette Beco, a simple, unassuming girl of 12 whose family scraped by without electricity or much comfort. There was nothing grand about Banneux, nothing that would attract the attention of crowds or scholars. But perhaps this was precisely why it was chosen. God often chooses the lowly and the littlest to bear messages of greatest significance. Banneux's serenity was only interrupted by the extraordinary when Mary, calling herself the Virgin of the Poor, reached out to Mariette in the midst of her family garden. Here the supernatural broke into the everyday, transforming the muddy paths of the village into a sanctuary of hope and consolation. The spring Mary indicated with her gentle hand became a channel of miraculous grace, bringing healing to bodies and souls. Pilgrims began to flow to Banneux from all corners, drawn by a promise that echoes through Catholic memory. God sees and loves the poor, the forgotten, the suffering. With every footfall on those weathered paths, the simple faith of the villagers was magnified, a new chapter in salvation history blooming in a place where life was sometimes hard and always humble. The chapel, the spring, and the surrounding groves became places where the veil between earth and heaven seemed astonishingly thin, inviting all who visit to discover the quiet, relentless mercy of God poured out through Mary's hands. Who was Mariette Beco? Mariette Beco was a humble, unassuming girl from the small Belgian village of Banneux, an unlikely vessel, perhaps, for a message destined to inflame faith across the world. Born in 1921 to a working-class family struggling through difficult times, Mariette's early years were marked by simplicity and hardship. Her mother had drifted away from the practice of the faith, and for years the Beco household lived quietly on the margins of both society and devotion. Everything changed on the cold evening of January 15, 1933. 14-year-old Mariette gazed out into the darkness and was startled by a vision. A luminous, beautiful lady standing in the garden, garbed in white and veiled in a heavenly light. The lady beckoned to her, but Mariette's family, initially skeptical, found it hard to believe their daughter's story. Still, Mariette's sincerity, humility, and steadfastness could not be ignored. Over 8 apparitions, the Blessed Virgin revealed herself to Mariette as the Virgin of the Poor, inviting her to pray, plunge her hands into a spring as a sign for the suffering, and offer hope to those in need. Though the world would eventually flock to hear the fruits of this extraordinary encounter, Mariette remained quiet, serene, and obedient to the requests of Our Lady, never seeking the limelight. She would go on to spend her entire life in Banneux, steadfast in her faith, known for her reserve, her gentleness, and her total surrender to God's mysterious designs. Mariette's life stands as a testament to God's preference for the lowly and the pure of heart, a gentle reminder that, when heaven chooses its messengers, it so often looks to the little ones to confound the wisdom of the world. The story of Mariette Beco continues to inspire countless souls to examine their own openness to Mary's call, to return to the sacraments, and to seek the quiet beauty of surrender to divine will. The 8 apparitions in Banneux. It was a quiet evening on January 15, 1933, when Mariette Beco, a shy 12-year-old girl, first saw a beautiful lady standing in the garden, bathed in light, dressed in white, with a radiant blue sash, and barefoot atop a small cloud. The lady beckoned Mariette to come here, but the child hesitated, and, just as quickly as she had appeared, the vision faded away. But this was only the beginning of a series of extraordinary encounters that would come to be known as the 8 apparitions of Our Lady of Banneux. Over the course of the following weeks, Mariette witnessed the gentle presence of the Blessed Virgin 7 more times, always at dusk. Each visit unfolded in an atmosphere of serene devotion and childlike trust, a simple garden transformed into a grace-filled meeting place between heaven and earth. Our Blessed Mother's message was consistent and clear. She introduced herself as the Virgin of the Poor and led Mariette to a spring, instructing her, "This spring is reserved for me, for all nations, for the sick." The water from this spring quickly became a sign of compassion and hope, as miraculous healings and conversions began to multiply among those who visited. In one apparition, Our Lady placed her hands in prayer and said, "I come to relieve suffering." In another, she comforted Mariette and promised, "Believe in me, I will believe in you." Many were touched by the simplicity and immediacy of Mary's call to faith, compassion, and charity, her concern for the poor, the sick, and those who felt abandoned or lost. As word spread, villagers and strangers alike gathered by the garden fence each evening, clutching rosaries and praying in hushed anticipation. The apparitions ended on March 2nd, 1933, but the ripples of hope, healing, and renewed devotion ignited by those 8 celestial visits have echoed through generations. Each appearance remains a radiant testament to Our Lady's desire to draw all people to the merciful heart of her Son, especially through humble, hidden acts of faith and love. I am the Virgin of the Poor, meaning of her title. When the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared in Banneux, Belgium in 1933, she revealed herself to the humble child Mariette Beco with a deeply moving title, I am the Virgin of the Poor. These few words carried a weight of comfort and promise that resounded far beyond the small garden in which she appeared. But what does it mean for Mary to call herself the Virgin of the Poor? This title is not only a gentle assurance that heaven looks upon the lowly and suffering, but a bold declaration that God's heart beats most tenderly for the forgotten, the outcast, and the burdened. The Virgin identifies herself not with power or glory, but with those most in need of mercy. In her visits to Mariette, she promised that this place, Banneux, was reserved for all nations, for the sick, and offered healing spring water as a tangible sign of her loving concern for all who suffer. The title reminds us that our Blessed Mother's intercession knows no boundaries. She draws near to those rejected by the world, children, the impoverished, the despairing, the physically and spiritually wounded. Through her message at Banneux, she invites every soul to place their trust in her Son Jesus and encourages us to imitate her tenderness toward the least among us. Devotion to the Virgin of the Poor thus becomes a living wellspring of hope, and her message, "Believe in me, I will believe in you," echoes to every generation. It is an invitation to surrender our isolation, anxieties, and wounds, and discover that in Mary's compassionate gaze, none are ever forgotten. Her words and title are a radiant testimony to the Gospel's promise. God raises up the lowly and pours out his grace most abundantly upon those who need him most. The message of hope for the poor and suffering. When Our Lady appeared in Banneux in 1933, she made herself known as the Virgin of the Poor, a gentle messenger sent not to the powerful or wealthy, but to a humble girl, and through her to all wounded and weary souls. She spoke, not in grand pronouncements, but in words of motherly compassion. I come to relieve suffering. For many, those words resonated as a lifeline in the midst of economic hardship and a world shadowed by turmoil. What makes Banneux distinct among Marian apparitions is this tender focus on spiritual and physical poverty. The Blessed Mother called on the faithful to bring their needs and pain to her, reminding us that God's love does not bypass brokenness. She pointed to the spring that flowed, inviting the sick, the suffering, and those burdened by life's crosses. This spring is reserved for all nations, for the sick. Miracles of healing began almost immediately, but just as powerful was the sense of dignity and belonging Our Lady bestowed on those who felt forgotten by the world. In quiet prayer at Banneux, pilgrims recount a feeling of being seen and loved by the Mother of God, no wound too small, no sorrow too hidden. Many attest to finding peace and new hope in the face of illness, family trials, or even spiritual desolation. Her gentle presence continues to urge every soul: persevere in suffering, approach her Son in the Holy Eucharist, and trust that heaven sees the lowly and joys in their faith. The message from Banneux is not only a promise of healing miracles, but a call to deeper compassion for the suffering around us, and confidence that, with Mary's intercession, no cross is carried alone. The Spring of Grace, a source of healing. Nestled in the serene Belgian countryside, near the humble home of 11-year-old Mariette Beco, there flows a spring forever marked by Our Lady's loving touch. During the Marian apparitions at Banneux in 1933, the Blessed Virgin identified herself as the Virgin of the Poor and guided Mariette to this spring. There, with a mother's patience and gentleness, Mary invited her spiritual children to push your hands into the water, assuring that this water had been reserved for the sick of all nations. Testimonies have poured in over decades, families arriving with ailing loved ones, the faithful bearing their burdens, each seeking relief and hope. More than just physical cures, the grace of Banneux often flows as a quiet restoration of broken hearts, family reconciliation, and spiritual healing. Pilgrims leave written notes tacked to the little chapel, rosaries left in gratitude, and carefully bottled water for loved ones back home. For Catholics devoted to the Eucharist, there is a profound echo here of Christ's own ministry, the Lord whose presence transforms ordinary elements, bread, wine, and here in Banneux, the water of a humble spring, into channels of divine mercy. In the silent prayers whispered by the spring and the flickering candles that line the path, one can sense the maternal presence of Mary, urging us not only to seek healing, but to open our hearts to Jesus, the true wellspring of life and hope. Calls to prayer, faith, and trust in God. At the heart of Our Lady of Banneux's message to young Mariette Beco and to the world is a gentle, persistent invitation. Return to prayer, deepen your faith, and renew your trust in the goodness of God. In those quiet Belgian evenings between January and March of 1933, the Blessed Virgin appeared not in grand cathedrals or bustling cities, but in the humble garden of a poor family's home, echoing a theme that runs through all of heaven's great visitations. God calls the little, the poor, the simple, and the sorrowful. Again and again, the Lady spoke words that pierced hearts. Pray much, believe in me, and I come to relieve suffering. These are not distant pronouncements, but deeply personal appeals offered to each soul in need. Our Lady of Banneux revealed herself as the Virgin of the Poor, not as a title of pity, but as a sign of hope. She told Mariette, and through her, all of us, open your hearts to God, entrust your worries to Him, come in faith, and drink at the spring. That little spring became a sign of grace, a physical place where countless people in need would come, many experiencing spiritual and even physical healing. Pilgrims at Banneux, and indeed devotees worldwide, often testify how the simple prayers Our Lady requested, especially the Rosary and heartfelt petitions for the suffering, continue to produce real miracles even today. The message resounds: prayer is the wellspring of strength, even when hope feels out of reach. In the Rosary, in Eucharistic adoration, in every whispered prayer for help, we meet the compassion of the Virgin of the Poor, who stands beside her children and draws them closer to her Son. Our Lady of Banneux's faith-filled call is more than a task. It is an invitation to live each day rooted in trust, letting God's love transform littleness and suffering into something beautiful. Her message endures, as relevant in our anxious times as it was in 1933, calling each heart back to prayer, back to faith, and back to the unfailing promises of God. The spiritual significance of January 1933. January 1933 marks a time of extraordinary grace and intervention. It is when the Blessed Virgin Mary, under the title Our Lady of Banneux, appeared to young Mariette Beco in the humble Belgian village of Banneux. Against a backdrop of personal hardship and global uncertainty, Europe still reeling from war and the shadow of economic depression, heaven reached down with a message tailored for the brokenhearted and the overlooked. Mariette was only 11 years old, a child from a poor family, and it was to her, one of the little ones, that Our Lady chose to reveal her maternal solicitude. The apparitions began on a cold winter evening, as Mariette gazed out into the darkness and saw a lady radiant with light. Reassuring and gentle, the Blessed Mother would come 8 times over the following weeks, always leading Mariette to prayer, penance, and trust in God's mercy. Most striking was Mary's declaration, "I am the Virgin of the poor." The spiritual power of these January days lies in their testimonial force, a clear reminder that the Mother of God continually seeks out the humble, the suffering, and those who endure hardship. Her presence in Banneux was not grandiose, but quiet, compassionate, and deeply Eucharistic. It was an invitation to deeper faith, reminding all who would listen that no soul, however poor or overlooked by the world, is forgotten by heaven. The water spring at Banneux, pointed out by Our Lady herself, became a symbol of the living waters of Christ's mercy. Just as our Lord multiplied healing in the Gospels, so too did Mary draw attention to this hidden source, inviting the faithful to approach with faith, hope, and the certainty that God's love is abundant, even in winter's chill. Testimonies of miraculous healings and conversions began to ripple out from Banneux, demonstrating that January 1933 was not only a moment in history, but a perpetual call to rediscover the hope that God offers to each generation through the hands of His Mother. How the Church investigated and approved the apparitions. When news spread in 1933 about a young Belgian girl, Mariette Beco, witnessing the Blessed Virgin Mary in Banneux, it quickly captured the prayerful attention of the faithful and the careful discernment of the Catholic Church. The Church doesn't rush into proclaiming apparitions as authentic. Her process is slow, measured, and deeply reverent, respecting both devotion and truth. The local bishop, wary but open, called first for prayer and prudence. A full canonical investigation began, gathering testimonies not just from Mariette, but also from her family, neighbors, and medical experts. The Church sought out every possible explanation, psychological, natural, or even the influence of local imagination. They wanted the facts, tested and purified through the light of faith and reason. Throughout the investigation, Mariette displayed humility and obedience, never seeking attention, hallmarks that have often swayed church authorities in discerning the genuine from the false. The messages of Our Lady of Banneux centered on prayer, faith, care for the suffering, and trust in God, resonated deeply with Orthodox Catholic teaching and bore spiritual fruit in countless lives. After years of scrutiny, in 1949, the Bishop of Liège approved the apparitions as worthy of belief. Since then, the little village of Banneux has become a sanctuary where the sick and hopeful come seeking comfort from the Virgin of the poor. The Church's approval stands as both a protective seal for the faithful and an invitation to trust the humble words and graces Our Lady extended to the world through her chosen messenger. Embracing the hope of Our Lady of Banneux. The story of Our Lady of Banneux is a radiant testament to Mary's loving concern for her children, especially the poor and suffering. Her message, filled with humility, tenderness, and unwavering hope, resonates for families and faithful from all walks of life. At Journeys of Faith, we cherish the grace that flows from Marian apparitions such as Banneux, reminding us that our Blessed Mother walks beside us in our daily trials, always guiding us gently toward her Son in the Holy Eucharist. Time and again, Our Lady has reached into the lives of ordinary people, stirring hearts and inspiring conversions. The miracles at Banneux stand as a beacon for those longing for healing and consolation. In sharing these stories, we invite you to rediscover a deep devotion to Mary and to trust in God's providence, no matter the circumstance. The Virgin of the Poor calls each of us to greater prayer, sacramental life, and compassion. We encourage you to continue exploring the richness of our Catholic faith with us, whether through pilgrimages, devotional resources, or your own prayer journey. May Our Lady of Banneux intercede for you and your loved ones, bringing hope, healing, and the joy only Christ can provide. Family, there is more to this post, so please see the link in the description for the rest of the article. Be sure to click the link in the description for a special news item. And since there is more to this article, finish reading and check out the special offer. Visit journeysoffaith.com website today.
Is your journey